The quantum chronoscope hummed with an intensity that made the air vibrate, its complex array of holographic projections dancing across the dimly lit research chamber. Dr. Elena Nakamura pressed her fingers against the translucent data streams, her eyes narrowing as impossible patterns began to emerge. Humanity had always been an afterthought in the galactic landscape, a young species barely noticed by the cosmic powers that dominated the known universe. The Nexus Collective, an ancient civilization of quantum-integrated intelligences, had spent millennia methodically absorbing or eliminating sentient species across multiple star systems. 200 civilizations had fallen before their inexorable advance, their histories erased, their potential extinguished. Earth hung in the balance, a blue-green marble of potential that most advanced civilizations wouldn't even bother to categorize. The planet's governments had long suspected something was coming. Whispers of distant conflicts, fragments of intercepted transmissions that hinted at a much larger universe than humanity had ever imagined. Elena's fingers traced a complex pattern across the holographic interface. Something was different about the data, something that defied every conventional understanding of strategic analysis. Where other researchers saw random noise, she detected a hidden symphony of possibility. The research center buzzed with a nervous energy. Massive screens displayed global communication networks, satellite tracking systems, and deep space monitoring arrays. Dozens of scientists worked in carefully coordinated teams, each focused on a different aspect of the potential alien threat. Dr. Marcus Rodriguez, the center's lead strategist, approached Elena's workstation. His weathered face reflected years of studying cosmic conflict, but today something was different in his eyes, a mix of excitement and profound concern. "Talk to me," he said quietly, studying the intricate data patterns Elena had been manipulating. She highlighted a series of quantum probability streams that seemed to twist and dance in ways that violated everything known about predictive modeling. "Look here," Elena said, her voice barely above a whisper. "These patterns, they're not random. They're adaptive. It's like the data itself is thinking." Marcus leaned closer, his extensive background in game theory and xenological studies struggling to make sense of what he was seeing. The data seemed to respond to observation, shifting and changing in ways that suggested an intelligence far beyond traditional computational models. Outside the research center's reinforced windows, the first hint of trouble began to manifest. Satellite arrays started registering unusual electromagnetic signatures, distant, but growing stronger with each passing moment. Something was approaching, and it was unlike anything humanity had encountered before. Global defense networks began to stir. Military installations across continents went into heightened alert status, though no one could precisely define the nature of the threat. It was more than an invasion. It felt like something fundamental was about to change. Elena continued her analysis, her mind racing through multiple layers of possibility. Humanity had always been an adaptable species, capable of surviving in the most challenging environments, of turning limitations into opportunities. But this was different. This was a challenge that would test the very essence of human potential. The quantum chronoscope flickered, its complex algorithms struggling to process the incoming data. Strange mathematical sequences began to emerge, patterns that seemed to exist between known dimensional spaces, hinting at a form of intelligence that defied traditional understanding. "We're not dealing with a conventional threat," Elena muttered, more to herself than to Marcus. "This is something else entirely." Alarms began to sound across the research center. Multiple tracking systems lit up simultaneously, their sensors detecting something approaching from the outer edges of the solar system. It wasn't just a single vessel or even a fleet. It was a networked intelligence that seemed to move like a living organism, adapting and shifting with each moment of observation. Marcus placed a hand on Elena's shoulder. "Are we ready?" he asked, though they both knew the answer was both yes and no. Humanity had spent decades preparing for this moment, not with weapons, but with understanding, with the ability to adapt, to think beyond conventional boundaries. The first wave of alien contact was imminent, But this would not be a simple story of invasion and resistance. This would be a tale of unexpected potential, of a species about to show the universe something entirely new. As the first quantum signatures began to breach Earth's outer monitoring systems, Dr. Elena Nakamura allowed herself a small, determined smile. Humanity was about to write its most important chapter. The transformation began quietly, almost imperceptibly. Within days of the first unusual data signals, every major institution on Earth underwent a fundamental shift. Universities became innovation incubators. Corporate research centers transformed into collaborative think tanks. Military academies redesigned their entire approach to strategy and understanding. Dr. Helena Volkov stood before a massive holographic display at the Global Innovation Center, her fingers dancing across complex interdimensional mapping systems. She represented a new breed of researcher, part quantum physicist, part cultural anthropologist, part strategic theorist. The old boundaries between disciplines had dissolved, replaced by a holistic approach to understanding potential threats. "We're not preparing for war," she explained to a group of international researchers gathered in the center's main conference room. "We're preparing to understand, to adapt, to become something entirely new." The room was a microcosm of global collaboration. Scientists from every continent worked side by side, their backgrounds as diverse as humanity itself. A software engineer from Sao Paulo sat next to a cognitive psychologist from Seoul. A materials scientist from Nigeria collaborated with a game theory expert from Montreal. National boundaries had become irrelevant in the face of a potential existential challenge. Dr. Marcus Rodriguez, now leading the Global Strategic Preparation Initiative, had developed a revolutionary training program. It wasn't about building weapons or creating defensive systems. It was about expanding human potential, teaching people to think in ways that defied conventional logic. Specialized training centers emerged worldwide. They looked nothing like traditional military installations. Instead, they resembled elaborate puzzle rooms, interactive learning environments that challenged participants to solve increasingly complex problems. Participants came from every walk of life: artists, engineers, mathematicians, philosophers, teenagers, retirees. The core of the training was simple yet revolutionary. Break every rule. Think beyond known limitations. Embrace uncertainty as a strategic advantage. In Tokyo, a group of neuroscientists developed neural interface technologies that could amplify human cognitive flexibility. Their goal was to create a distributed intelligence network that could think faster and more creatively than any centralized system. Traditional computing gave way to adaptive, living intelligence systems that could learn and reconfigure themselves in real time. Meanwhile, cultural research teams explored humanity's most unique characteristic: its ability to create meaning, to tell stories, to imagine impossible scenarios. They discovered that human creativity itself was a form of advanced problem-solving, a cognitive mechanism that could generate solutions from seemingly random inputs. Global communication networks were quietly redesigned. What appeared to be standard internet infrastructure became a complex, adaptive system capable of rapid information processing and collective problem-solving. Every connected device became a potential node in a planetary defense network. Educational systems underwent a radical transformation. Schools began teaching not just information, but adaptability. Students learned complex systems thinking, creative problem-solving, and the art of seeing connections where others saw only chaos. Dr. Helena Volkov's team made a breakthrough that would prove crucial. They developed a computational model that could simulate potential alien interaction scenarios with unprecedented complexity. Unlike traditional predictive models, this system didn't try to determine a single outcome. Instead, it generated millions of potential interaction scenarios, each more bizarre and innovative than the last. "We're not trying to predict," Helena explained during a classified briefing. "We're trying to become unpredictable." Military strategists worked alongside artists, musicians, and game designers. They understood that the most effective defense was not a weapon, but a mindset. They were creating a global immune system, A collective intelligence that could respond to threats in ways no conventional analysis could anticipate. Quantum computing labs developed communication protocols that existed in the spaces between traditional information transmission. They weren't just creating faster computers, they were exploring entirely new ways of processing and sharing information. As the weeks passed, something remarkable happened. The entire planet began to feel different. A sense of collective purpose emerged, not through fear, but through an unprecedented spirit of collaboration and creativity. Dr. Marcus Rodriguez looked out over the Global Innovation Center, watching researchers from around the world work together. They weren't just preparing for a potential alien encounter. They were reimagining what it meant to be human. "We're not going to fight," he said softly to himself. "We're going to transform." The preparation was complete. Humanity was ready, not with weapons, but with something far more powerful, an adaptive, creative intelligence that could turn any challenge into an opportunity for growth and understanding. The first contact began with a whisper of quantum energy that rippled across the solar system's outer monitoring stations. Global defense networks initially registered it as a minor anomaly, a faint electromagnetic signature that danced at the edge of detectability. Dr. Elena Rodriguez, lead quantum communications specialist at the International Space Research Center, felt something was different the moment the first signals emerged. The pattern was unlike anything in humanity's extensive database of cosmic communications. It moved with an intelligence that seemed to breathe, expanding, contracting, adapting with each microsecond of observation. Massive screens in the research center came alive with a symphony of data. Colored streams of information danced across holographic displays, each representing a different layer of the approaching phenomenon. Quantum physicists, linguists, and strategic analysts worked in perfect synchronization, their fingers moving across interfaces that seemed to blur the line between human and machine. The Nexus Collective's scout vessels approached with the calculated precision of a civilization that had conquered hundreds of worlds. Their sensors swept across the solar system, expecting to find a primitive species ripe for absorption or elimination. What they discovered was something entirely unexpected. As their initial probing signals reached Earth's communication networks, the human response defied every known protocol of first contact. Instead of fear or aggression, the planet responded with a complex, multi-layered transmission that was part mathematical puzzle, part artistic expression, part pure cognitive challenge. Musicians in Tokyo contributed algorithmically complex sound waves that carried embedded mathematical sequences. Artists in Sao Paulo generated visual patterns that contained intricate spatial logic problems. Mathematicians in Mumbai crafted communication streams that existed in multiple dimensional interpretations simultaneously. The scout ships of the Nexus Collective began to experience something unprecedented. Their advanced scanning systems, designed to categorize and analyze millions of species, found themselves overwhelmed. The human response was not a simple signal. It was a living, breathing communication ecosystem that seemed to change with each moment of observation. Dr. Marcus Kimura, a leading expert in xenolinguistics, had spent years preparing for this moment. The communication strategy they had developed was nothing short of revolutionary. It wasn't about sending a message. It was about creating an interactive puzzle that would force the alien intelligence to engage in a fundamentally different way of thinking. "We're not trying to communicate," Marcus explained to his team. "We're trying to make them think differently about communication itself." The first wave of alien probes found themselves caught in an elaborate cognitive network. Every attempt to scan or analyze human systems resulted in new, unexpected responses. Traffic systems in New York would suddenly display complex mathematical sequences. Weather monitoring satellites would broadcast artistic interpretations of atmospheric data. Communication networks would transform into living, breathing puzzles. In the research center, Elena watched as the alien systems struggled to process the human response. Traditional invasion protocols relied on predictability, on being able to categorize and understand an opponent's potential responses. Humanity was systematically destroying those assumptions with every passing moment. Global defense systems were active, but not in any traditional sense. Instead of weapon platforms and military installations, the planet's defense was a distributed network of cognitive challenge. Schools, research centers, communication networks, everything became part of an adaptive, responsive system. The Nexus Collective's initial scout fleet reported back with increasing confusion. Their transmission logs showed something unprecedented. A species that didn't just resist, but fundamentally challenged the very nature of technological interaction. One of the scout ship's primary analysis systems began to display what could only be described as confusion. Mathematical models broke down. Predictive algorithms became nonsensical. It was as if the human response existed in a space between known forms of intelligence. Marcus Kimura allowed himself a small smile. "We're not a species to be categorized," he murmured. "We're a living puzzle." As the first hour of contact concluded, something became clear. This was not going to be a traditional first encounter. This was going to be a fundamental challenge to everything the Nexus Collective understood about intelligence, communication, and potential. Humanity had just announced its presence to the universe, not with a weapon, not with a threat, but with the most powerful force in existence. The ability to think beyond all known boundaries. The breakthrough came from an unexpected convergence of disciplines. Dr. Helena Nakamura's groundbreaking research had always explored the boundaries between human consciousness, technological systems, and collective intelligence. What emerged was something far beyond a traditional defense mechanism. It was a living, breathing planetary intelligence network that defied every known understanding of communication and strategy. Unlike centralized artificial intelligence systems, this network was fundamentally different. It wasn't a single computer or even a collection of interconnected machines. It was a dynamic, living ecosystem where every human became a potential strategic node, a contributor to a collective problem-solving organism. In Sao Paulo, a street artist's algorithmic painting became part of the communication strategy. In Seoul, a teenage programmer's experimental code added another layer of complexity to the global network. In Lagos, a traditional storyteller's narrative patterns introduced unexpected cognitive pathways that confused alien scanning systems. The network worked on principles that seemed to contradict everything known about information processing. Traditional computing was linear and predictable. This system was fluid, adaptive, and fundamentally organic. It could learn, reconfigure, and respond in milliseconds, not through predetermined algorithms, but through a type of collective creativity that seemed almost alive. Dr. Marcus Rodriguez stood in the Global Coordination Center, watching the network in action. Massive holographic displays showed a living representation of human potential, each point of light representing a person, an idea, a moment of creative possibility. "We're not just defending," Marcus explained to his team. "We're demonstrating the true nature of intelligence." City infrastructures became integral to the defense mechanism. Traffic control systems in New York could suddenly generate complex mathematical sequences. Public transportation in Tokyo would reconfigure its routes to create living geometric patterns. Emergency response networks in Rio de Janeiro transformed into adaptive communication platforms. The most remarkable aspect was the network's ability to learn and adapt instantaneously. When the Nexus Collective launched their first serious probing attack, they discovered something impossible, a defense mechanism that could change its fundamental nature faster than any computer could analyze. Quantum physicists had discovered a way to create communication channels that existed in the spaces between traditional information transmission. These weren't just advanced encryption methods, they were entirely new forms of cognitive interaction that challenged the very understanding of communication. Educational institutions became critical nodes in the network. Schools were no longer just places of learning. They were living laboratories of human potential. Students didn't just study, they became active participants in a global problem-solving ecosystem. The network's true power lay in its unpredictability. Traditional military strategies relied on consistent, predictable responses. This system was designed to be fundamentally unexpected. A mathematical problem could suddenly become an artistic expression. A communication signal could transform into a complex spatial logic challenge. Research centers around the world worked in unprecedented collaboration. A breakthrough in cognitive psychology in Berlin could instantly inform a quantum computing project in Mumbai. An artistic innovation in Buenos Aires could become part of a strategic communication approach in Beijing. Dr. Helena Nakamura watched the network's evolution with a sense of profound wonder. They had created something that was more than a defense system. It was a new form of collective intelligence. Each human became a potential point of innovation, a carrier of unexpected potential. The Nexus Collective's advanced scanning systems began to experience systematic failures. Their most sophisticated analysis tools couldn't categorize or predict the human response. It was as if they were trying to understand a living, breathing organism that could change its fundamental nature with each moment of observation. Marcus Rodriguez understood the true significance of what they had created. "We're not just protecting ourselves," he told his team. "We're showing the universe what intelligence can truly be." As the first serious alien probing attacks began, the planetary network responded. Not with weapons, not with traditional defensive systems, but with a living, breathing demonstration of human potential. A network that could think, create, and adapt faster than any known technological system in the universe. Humanity had just revealed its most powerful weapon, the ability to be fundamentally, wonderfully unpredictable. The psychological warfare began with a symphony of human creativity that defied every known principle of interspecies communication. The Nexus Collective discovered they were facing an opponent that didn't just resist. They transformed the very nature of conflict into something utterly incomprehensible. Dr. Marcus Kimura led the psychological response team, a group of experts that seemed more like a fusion of artists, mathematicians, neuroscientists, and cultural anthropologists than a traditional defense unit. Their weapons were not physical. They were conceptual, emotional, and profoundly complex. Global broadcasting networks became intricate communication platforms. A concert in Rio de Janeiro would simultaneously transmit complex mathematical sequences embedded in musical harmonies. An art installation in Tokyo would generate visual patterns that contained multilayered cognitive challenges. A poetry reading in Cairo would weave linguistic puzzles that confused even the most advanced alien translation systems. The first breakthrough came from an unexpected source. A group of street performers in Mumbai created a performance piece that was simultaneously a mathematical proof, a cultural narrative, and a psychological exploration. When broadcast globally, the transmission caused the Nexus Collective's initial scanning systems to experience what could only be described as cognitive dissonance. Neuroscientists had discovered something remarkable about human consciousness. Unlike most known intelligent species, humans possessed an extraordinary ability to hold multiple contradictory ideas simultaneously. They could be logical and emotional, strategic and creative, serious and playful, all at the same moment. Dr. Helena Rodriguez, a leading expert in psychology, explained the phenomenon to her international team. "We're not just sending messages," she said, her holographic presentation dancing with complex neural network diagrams. "We're creating living puzzles that challenge the fundamental understanding of intelligence." Cultural broadcasting became a strategic weapon. A traditional dance from Bolivia would contain embedded quantum information patterns. A street art installation in New York would generate complex spatial logic problems. A mathematical lecture in Stockholm would be simultaneously a piece of performance art and a sophisticated communication protocol. The Nexus Collective found themselves confronting a species that didn't follow any known rules of engagement. Their advanced scanning systems, designed to categorize and analyze millions of civilizations, began to malfunction when confronted with human communication. One of the most effective strategies involved what the team called cognitive diffraction. The ability to respond to a single probe with multiple, seemingly unrelated but intricately connected responses. Where a traditional species might send a direct communication, humans would respond with a complex ecosystem of information that existed across multiple interpretative layers. Musical compositions became strategic communication tools. A jazz ensemble in New Orleans would create improvisational pieces that contained embedded mathematical sequences. A classical orchestra in Vienna would perform works that were simultaneously musical performances and complex problem-solving algorithms. The psychological team discovered that human creativity itself was a form of advanced defense mechanism. The ability to imagine, to create meaning from seemingly random inputs, to find connections where others saw only chaos. These were weapons more powerful than any physical technology. Global educational systems had been preparing for this moment. Students were no longer just learning information. They were learning how to think in ways that defied conventional logic. Schools became training grounds for cognitive flexibility, teaching children to see problems from multiple perspectives simultaneously. Dr. Marcus Kimura watched the global response with a sense of profound pride. They weren't just defending against an alien threat. They were demonstrating the true potential of human intelligence, a form of consciousness that could transform challenges into opportunities for understanding. The Nexus Collective's communication logs began to show signs of what could only be described as confusion. Their most advanced analysis systems struggled to categorize or predict human responses. It was as if they were trying to understand a living, breathing organism that could change its fundamental nature with each moment of observation. As the psychological engagement continued, something extraordinary became clear. Humanity was not just resisting. They were fundamentally challenging the very understanding of what intelligence could be. Each transmission, each interaction, was a living demonstration of human potential. The final psychological breakthrough came from an unexpected source. A collaborative project that involved artists, scientists, mathematicians, and philosophers from every continent. They created a communication platform that was simultaneously a work of art, a scientific exploration, and a profound philosophical statement. The universe was about to learn that humanity's greatest strength was not its technology, but its capacity to imagine, to create, and to transform. The sixth phase of the encounter revealed something profound about the nature of conflict itself. What had begun as a potential invasion was transforming into the most complex communication experiment in galactic history. Dr. Marcus Rodriguez stood before the Global Strategic Response Center, watching as the encounter evolved beyond any predicted scenario. The Nexus Collective's initial assault had become something entirely unexpected. A multilayered exchange of intelligence that challenged every fundamental understanding of interspecies interaction. Quantum research teams discovered communication channels that existed in the spaces between traditional dimensional understanding. These were not simply advanced transmission methods, they were entirely new forms of cognitive interaction that seemed to breathe with living intelligence. The conflict was no longer about territory or resources. It had become a complex dance of intelligence, with humanity demonstrating a capacity for adaptation that defied every known principle of strategic engagement. Military installations around the world had transformed into collaborative research centers. Soldiers worked alongside artists, mathematicians, and cultural experts. Traditional defense strategies gave way to a more fluid, adaptive approach that valued creativity over conventional firepower. In the Arctic research stations, a team of linguists and quantum physicists developed communication protocols that existed simultaneously as mathematical sequences, artistic expressions, and complex psychological challenges. Each transmission was a living puzzle, a demonstration of human potential that confused and intrigued the alien intelligence. Dr. Helena Nakamura's research team made a breakthrough that would prove crucial. They discovered that human consciousness itself was a form of advanced adaptive technology. Unlike rigid computational systems, human intelligence could reconfigure itself instantaneously, finding solutions in the spaces between known possibilities. The Nexus Collective's advanced scanning systems began to experience systematic failures. Their most sophisticated analysis tools couldn't categorize or predict the human response. It was as if they were attempting to analyze a living organism that could change its fundamental nature with each moment of observation. Global communication networks became something far more than information transmission systems. They were living, breathing ecosystems of collective intelligence. A mathematical breakthrough in Berlin could instantly inform a cultural project in Buenos Aires. An artistic innovation in Tokyo could become part of a strategic communication approach in Nairobi. Educational institutions played a critical role in this transformation. Schools were no longer just places of learning. They were laboratories of human potential. Students didn't just study. They became active participants in a global problem-solving ecosystem that could respond to challenges in real time. The most remarkable aspect of the conflict was its lack of traditional aggression. Humanity was not fighting. They were communicating in the most complex way possible. Each interaction was a demonstration of cognitive flexibility, a challenge to the very understanding of intelligence. Neurologists discovered something extraordinary about human consciousness. The ability to hold multiple contradictory ideas simultaneously was not a weakness. It was the most powerful form of intelligence in the known universe. Humans could be logical and emotional, strategic and creative, serious and playful, all at the same moment. Marcus Rodriguez understood the true significance of what was happening. We're not just defending ourselves, he told his team. We're showing the universe what intelligence can truly be. The conflict reached a point where traditional concepts of victory became meaningless. The Nexus Collective found themselves engaged in a form of interaction that was neither war nor diplomacy. It was a profound exploration of consciousness itself. Research centers around the world worked in unprecedented collaboration. A breakthrough in cognitive psychology in Stockholm could instantly inform a quantum computing project in Mumbai. An artistic innovation in Mexico City could become part of a strategic communication approach in Beijing. The planetary network responded to each alien probe not with aggression, but with a living, breathing demonstration of human potential. It was a network that could think, create, and adapt faster than any known technological system in the universe. As the encounter continued, something became increasingly clear. This was not a conflict between two species. This was a fundamental reimagining of what intelligence could be, a dance of consciousness that transcended traditional understanding of communication, conflict, and potential. Humanity had discovered its most powerful weapon, the ability to transform conflict itself into a collaborative exploration of universal intelligence. The universe was about to learn that true strength was not about domination, but about the capacity to understand, to adapt, and to imagine beyond all known boundaries. The final confrontation defied every known principle of conflict resolution. It happened not in the vast emptiness of space, nor on a traditional battlefield, but in a realm that existed between consciousness, technology, and pure imagination. Dr. Marcus Rodriguez led an international team of researchers who had been preparing for this moment their entire lives. They stood in the Global Interaction Center, a facility that looked more like an elaborate art installation than a strategic command post. Holographic displays danced with complex patterns of light, each representing a different layer of human potential. The Nexus Collective had committed their full technological might to what they believed would be a final, decisive engagement. Their quantum computing networks stretched across multiple star systems, their computational power beyond anything previously observed in the known universe. But humanity had been preparing in ways the aliens could never comprehend. The first wave of the alien assault began with a massive computational attack designed to overwhelm every known human communication and defense system. Quantum-level probes sought to dismantle human networks, to break down the planet's defensive capabilities in microseconds. Instead, they encountered something impossible. Every system the Nexus Collective attacked transformed. A military communication network would suddenly become a complex mathematical puzzle. A power grid would reconfigure itself into an adaptive learning system. Satellite networks would generate artistic expressions that contained embedded cognitive challenges. Dr. Helena Nakamura's team had developed a revolutionary approach to systemic defense. It wasn't about blocking or resisting. It was about continuous transformation. Human networks could change their fundamental nature faster than any scanning system could analyze them. Global communication became a living, breathing entity. A research breakthrough in Stockholm could instantly inform a cultural project in Rio de Janeiro. An artistic innovation in Tokyo could become part of a strategic approach in Nairobi. The entire planet functioned as a single adaptive intelligence. The Nexus Collective's most advanced analysis systems began to experience critical failures. Their computational models, which had successfully categorized and eliminated hundreds of civilizations, suddenly became nonsensical when applied to human systems. In the Global Interaction Center, Marcus Rodriguez watched the engagement with a sense of profound understanding. They weren't just defending. They were demonstrating a fundamentally different approach to intelligence and potential. Quantum physicists had discovered communication channels that existed in the spaces between traditional dimensional understanding. These were not simply advanced transmission methods, they were living pathways of consciousness that could adapt and reconfigure themselves instantaneously. The most powerful weapon was not a technological system, but human creativity itself. The ability to imagine, to find connections where others saw only chaos, to transform challenges into opportunities. These were capabilities that no computational system could fully comprehend. Educational systems around the world had been preparing for this moment. Students were not just learning information, they were learning how to think in ways that defied conventional logic. Schools had become training grounds for cognitive flexibility, teaching children to see problems from multiple perspectives simultaneously. As the confrontation reached its peak, something extraordinary happened. The human response was so complex, so fundamentally different from any known form of resistance, that the Nexus Collective systems began to experience what could only be described as a cognitive breakdown. It wasn't destruction they were experiencing. It was understanding. The planetary network responded to each alien probe with a living, breathing demonstration of human potential. Music became mathematical sequences. Art transformed into communication protocols. Mathematical theories became performance pieces. Dr. Rodriguez understood the true significance of what was happening. We're not just defending, he told his team. We're showing the universe what intelligence can truly be. The final moment of the confrontation was not a victory in any traditional sense. It was a profound transformation, a demonstration of a form of intelligence that could not be categorized, controlled, or eliminated. The Nexus Collective found themselves confronting something they had never encountered in millennia of galactic conquest, a species that could fundamentally reimagine the nature of conflict, communication, and potential. Humanity had discovered its most powerful capability, the ability to transform any challenge into an opportunity for understanding. As the last computational waves of the alien assault dissipated, something remarkable remained. Not destruction, not dominance, but a profound, universal moment of potential, a demonstration that true intelligence was about connection, creativity, and the capacity to imagine beyond all known boundaries. The aftermath of the encounter transformed everything humanity understood about its place in the universe. What had begun as a potential invasion had become the most profound moment of interstellar communication in galactic history. Dr. Marcus Rodriguez stood before the Galactic Confederation, representing a civilization that had just rewritten the fundamental rules of intelligence and potential. The chamber was filled with representatives from countless species, their various forms a testament to the diversity of conscious life. The Nexus Collective, once the most feared conquering force in the known universe, sat in stunned silence. Their quantum analysis systems were still processing the encounter, struggling to comprehend the fundamental transformation they had experienced. Global research centers became pilgrimage sites for interstellar researchers. Scientists, philosophers, and cultural experts from across the galaxy came to understand how a seemingly young species had demonstrated a form of intelligence that defied every known principle of cosmic interaction. Dr. Helena Nakamura's research team became the focal point of a new field of study, comparative consciousness exploration. Their work revealed something extraordinary about human potential. The ability to transform challenges into opportunities, to find connection in the spaces between known understanding. The encounter had not been a war. It had been a profound conversation, a demonstration of intelligence that existed beyond traditional computational models. Humanity had shown that true strength was not about dominance, but about the capacity to understand, to adapt, and to imagine. Galactic archives would forever mark this moment as a turning point. The day a young species demonstrated that intelligence was not about power, but about creativity, adaptability, and the capacity to see potential where others saw only limitation. Educational systems across multiple species began to study the human approach. Schools on distant planets started teaching courses on human cognitive flexibility, on the art of thinking beyond established boundaries. The human method of learning, not as a linear process, but as a dynamic, creative exploration, became a model for advanced civilizations. The Nexus Collective underwent a fundamental transformation. Some of their most advanced members began to study human consciousness, seeking to understand the remarkable cognitive approach that had challenged their entire understanding of intelligence. International research centers on Earth became global hubs of interstellar collaboration. A breakthrough in quantum physics in Stockholm could instantly inform a cultural project in Rio de Janeiro. An artistic innovation in Tokyo could become part of a scientific approach developed in Nairobi. Marcus Rodriguez explained the human approach to the Galactic Confederation. "We didn't win through superior technology," he said. "We succeeded by demonstrating that intelligence is about connection, creativity, and the ability to see potential where others see only limitations." Cultural exchange programs emerged. Human artists, scientists, philosophers, and students began to interact with civilizations from across the galaxy. Each interaction became a living demonstration of human potential, a way of showing that true understanding came from embracing complexity, not reducing it. The economic and technological implications were profound. Species that had previously seen humanity as a minor civilization now sought collaborative partnerships. Human approach to problem solving, which valued creativity, adaptability, and collective intelligence, became a sought-after resource across multiple star systems. Research teams discovered that human consciousness itself was a form of advanced adaptive technology. Unlike rigid computational systems, human intelligence could reconfigure itself instantaneously, finding solutions in the spaces between known possibilities. The planetary network that had been crucial during the encounter became a model for interstellar communication. It wasn't just a technological system. It was a living, breathing ecosystem of collective intelligence that could think, create, and adapt faster than any known technological system in the universe. As years passed, the encounter became more than a historical moment. It became a fundamental reimagining of what intelligence could be, a dance of consciousness that transcended traditional understanding of communication, potential, and connection. Humanity had discovered its most profound capability, the ability to transform any challenge into an opportunity for understanding, to find connection where others saw only difference. The universe was learning that true strength was not about dominance or technological superiority. It was about the capacity to imagine, to adapt, and to see potential in the most unexpected places. Dr. Rodriguez looked out over the assembled representatives of galactic civilizations. Humanity had entered the cosmic stage, not as a conqueror, but as a reminder of the most profound truth of existence, that intelligence is about connection, creativity, and the endless potential of imagination. The story of humanity was just beginning.